Welcome to the second episode of the Connect Mór Podcast. I'm the co-founder and CEO James, and in this podcast I'm joined by our co-founder and CTO Brendan and our marketing manager TJ. Our first ever guest on the podcast is Debbie Shaw, who's an online content creator, digital marketer, and she's in the early stages of setting up her own content agency. We talk to Debbie about herself, content marketing, and we break down one of the most interesting marketing campaigns that she's ever seen. Hopefully you enjoy, and I'll talk to you very soon. Okay. Welcome to the second episode of the Connect Mór Podcast. My name is James. I'm one of the hosts. We have Brendan on, who's the CTO of Connect Mór. We have DJ, who is the marketing manager. And our guest today is Debbie Shaw. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good there, yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Good. So we're going to jump into it. So as I guess what would have been explained in the intro, we're going to be talking to Debbie today about herself and her interest in marketing, and also a particular marketing campaign that she found interesting. So yeah, Debbie, do you want to tell us a small bit about yourself and your background and why you are where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm Debbie and I'm from Malta, which is a tiny little island in the Mediterranean. I moved to Ireland around 3 years ago now, nearly. I moved here for my master's degree back in NUI Galway. I did a master's in digital marketing, and my goal from a very young age was always to just not be living back home. I always wanted to just leave the country. So with that little goal in mind, I got that master's degree and I immediately jumped into the industry. I landed a job in usual corporate 9 to 5. Did that for around a year and a half maybe. And obviously now things are very different and I run my own business. That's not an official business yet. But it's basically everything to do with social media, digital marketing, content, graphic design, video as well. So kind of like a marketing unicorn right now at the stage I'm at. But that's basically it without throwing everything away.
Yeah, cool. And then how are you finding, what prompted you to set up your own business rather than get a job being a marketer in some company?
Yeah. So I think it all started back when, I was doing a bachelor's in European studies with philosophy at first. And I was always landing a few freelance gigs here and there with just not even fetching them. Just the experience landed on my lap and I took them up. So the same happened during my master's degree, that I always had a side gig going on. Come to the point where I landed a job. Obviously, although I was a graduate, there wasn't that much years of experience under my belt. I only had 2 years. And with a marketing job, you're not really going to go into the managerial role. So hierarchy wise, it's still at the bottom of the triangle. Mm-hmm. So I had those gigs simply to keep up with life and have that little extra money in my pocket. Then I think it all just got to a point where I did start to notice that I do have a tendency of not following the rules, because I'm very I do like to follow rules, but I like to be my own boss. I the moment that COVID hit, I got that little inkling and little taste of freedom in the sense of working around my own clock. And as long as the job gets done and you meet your deadlines, I thought that it was fine anyways. So I did start to see my soul kind of shift over to the more self-employed freelance route. And I am a creative person naturally as well. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those things that when you don't feel inspired, I thought that the freedom of actually going out for a walk rather than still sitting at your desk is very important.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically it. Then the way it happened is my freelance side gigs ended up becoming a whole part-time job in itself while I was working full-time.
Yeah.
So then I just had to do that little risk of, okay, it's time. Like, yes, the pandemic was still happening, but at least I was lucky enough to still have food on my table and the roof over my head, and the risk made sense.
Yep.
And fast forward 6 months now, and I'm doing okay.
Yeah. And then just for like, I suppose we're kind of conscious of like providing value to people that are watching or listening. So like, what would you say is the most important kind of thing you've learned going from, in terms of trying to set up your own like communications agency? Like, do you have any learnings already that are particularly important?
Oh, yeah.
Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, kind of putting you on the spot.
I think it's one of those things where it's always a blessing in disguise now that you can handle like anything negative coming your way. Whether it, like before, it would be maybe a difficult manager.
Yeah.
This time around, you're your own manager, but you might have a difficult client. The moment that you notice that they are bringing in a good amount of like trouble to your day-to-day life, that is the moment that you have to realize, like, listen, it's time to be dropped. Like, that amount of money is not worth the hassle. It's kind of like you're now bargaining with your time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you raised kind of two kind of good points there. Like one you mentioned about like COVID and you know, when people are working from home, like that's a point where you can kind of realize that, I can work on my own without like a manager right there, and I still get stuff done. So, you know, if I was running a business, I would still get stuff done. Because, you know, some people when they're starting a business, like, oh, I'm not, you know, productive enough, or I don't have the like persistence, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And the second point you just mentioned was, so just about the managers, like, you're working for a manager when you're working with a company, but then, you know, you might not get on with them, or there might be trouble there. But, you know, when you start the business, it's not, you don't not have a boss. Like, you don't have a boss, but your customers are you know, they're basically like your boss, because, you know, you're doing stuff for them, you're delivering stuff for them and all that.
Yeah, there is that like selfish thing. Like, I am a competitive person by nature as well. So
I think it's necessary to try and set up a business.
Exactly, that's the thing. So it was just one of those things where you do have to understand that you're going to be working from 7 to 11. Like, there still aren't those days that I eat at my laptop.
Yeah. Just to clarify, 4 hours or 16 hours?
So 16.
Okay, just double checking.
Oh, I wish. No, 11 p.m. Yeah, but basically that's the thing. That competitive nature in you is also like with word of mouth and how important that is. Maybe you're not there to impress a manager, but you're there to impress a client, because, you know, like, you respect them enough, and you respect that importance that, listen, if this piece of work is good enough, I know that 4 months from now, like, something even better is going to happen. They're going to come back with a project with a higher paying budget. Another thing is, something else that I learned is, yes, you have to be cheap at first. Like, you have to charge them like the rates and the way you charge. Like, maybe it might not be something that like you're after first. It's kind of like the whole working for free concept. This is 4 years in the making of working for free, you know?
Like working for exposure, that kind of type thing.
Yeah. It's always going to be a battle trying to find that balance, you know, where you know your worth, but you're also working for exposure. Just say yes and find the time. Like, sacrifice is basically the main thing.
Yeah. And then what do you like? Sorry, DJ, go.
Yeah, I was just going into the flow of that, because we also have to move into the content and the stuff that we have planned for the podcast and just come up to that. So we were thinking that you had done various marketing gigs over the time, and you design content, could be like videos, creatives, websites, ranging from A to Z of marketing. So I guess for you, I just want to know your opinion. How important is content when it comes to marketing, when it comes to creating brand ideas? If we are talking about content marketing, what are your views on it? What's the importance it holds?
It holds everything. So it's one of those things where even if you were to just start off with a design or a message, I think the most important thing is making sure that you have content that is adaptable for any sort of platform. So I do like to think with a content first, context second kind of perspective and approach when it comes to these marketing channels and social media. So I feel like I'm a storyteller at heart before a marketer. So I think it's just about like bringing in everything together. Ideally, things could get more creative. Sometimes people like to put on their foot on the brakes very quickly and sell when it comes to their marketing strategy, rather than entertain and inform and just look nice and presentable, you know? So I do think that I see content 3 years from now being something really fun and just competitive. Like, I keep saying competition, but right now with all the ads that you think of, you see the logo at the very end. Like, you don't know what it's about. It's just a nice little movie that you're watching.
Yeah, I think though on the topic of like the marketing being like fun and being very competitive and stuff, you're seeing that I think on social media in particular already with like the brands now. You know, like everyone, like lots of people are familiar with the Wendy's Twitter person who like roasts people.
Yeah.
Or like there's lots of that across brands. You know, like Ryanair are mad on TikTok at the moment.
Yeah.
And they just have like their own little like cheeky TikToks.
Yeah.
But like that, yeah, those sorts of marketing tactics are becoming like very widespread. Whereas a couple of years ago, if a company did something like that, like it was big news that they were being like, I don't know if the word is like colloquial or like, you know, like talking like as if they were just a regular person on the internet, essentially, like running it. Essentially, they were like trying to run like meme pages, some of the companies, right?
Yeah.
But like that would have been massive news a few years ago. But now I think there's more and more companies kind of adopting that strategy because I guess it's obviously it's so effective for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like three. I was watching something there, and it was like three things like that. You know, kind of a recipe for a good marketing campaign. It's like, you know, it has to be funny. It has to be self-aware. Like, you know, the company knows who they are, and you know, whatever, and like self-deprecating as well. Like, if they can make jokes about themselves, obviously not too much.
Yeah.
You know, it comes across as the company's very honest, and you know, people kind of like the company a lot.
Yeah.
What's the guy who plays Deadpool? The actor.
Ryan Reynolds.
He has a whiskey company. He has his own marketing company, and he does very well. But all his ads, like for his gin company, actually, it's a gin. Like, he almost takes the piss out of the gin, and you know, and it's a very good ad. And like, you're like, oh, I like that, but he's like, it's just another gin, basically.
So Debbie, would there be any particular campaign that comes to your mind which like really delivers on strong content and really does that job which needs to be done?
Yeah.
Anything?
I think the one that I pointed out to James was the Dumb Ways to Die by the Metro campaign in Australia.
Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
I actually.
So could you describe that campaign for the people who haven't seen it? So what we'll do is we'll put it in the show notes. I think is the thing that's done. Like, I don't know what that entails, but we'll do that. And
we'll just add a little clip or some snapshot of it.
We'll figure it out. But could you describe anyway what the campaign is for anyone that's listening?
Yeah. So basically, the way it starts is that a lot of accidents were happening at train stations. Most of the time, people just like recklessly being on their phones and falling into the tracks, for example, and that sort of thing. And I believe it was Australia, but they wanted to figure out a way on how to prevent these accidents from happening at train stations. So here comes Dumb Ways to Die, which is this really silly, catchy song of dumb ways to die, being eaten by a bear, that sort of thing, with the last one being train stations. Like, dumb ways to die is like an accident at the train station. After that video and that music was released, besides like topping a bunch of charts and going absolutely viral, it included people pledging to not to take care of themselves at train stations. I pledge, I promise to pay attention while I'm at a train station. And it actually decreased accidents by 21.5%, something like that, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
So a game came out of it as well for like little kids,
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff. It's just something like really cute and positive, but it just stays in your head. So the overall message wasn't always just be careful at train stations. Like, they could have gone a very dramatic route. Like we see it a lot in Ireland with drinking and driving, for example, which is also effective. But they definitely took a more light-hearted route for a very serious thing.
Yeah. It's funny as well, because we were just talking about it, what Brendan was mentioning there about the 3 components for an effective marketing campaign.
Funny.
Like, funny was one of them anyway, but like self-deprecating as well.
Yeah, it's a funny, like, it's a very morbid kind of comedy. Like, you know, it like looks like it's designed for children, but it's very serious.
Yeah.
It's like it's funny. Like, one of the ones was Ways to Die was scratching a drug dealer's new car. So that was a bit like
something like that.
They're baiting your genitals to piranhas as well.
Yeah, that was another one. Yeah.
So it is like very dark, but
Yeah.
I think they obviously nailed. They just hit it out of the park when it came to encouraging people to share and engagement with that.
Yeah.
That's I don't remember exactly how old I was, but it was something at like school, where everyone's like, "Oh, Debbie, listen to this," and everyone's like singing the whole thing because it's cute as well at the same time.
Yeah, I listened to it earlier, like when you sent it on, and it's kind of stuck in my head now.
Yeah, it is.
Ways to die.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's definitely it's cool. It's nice, and it's mad as well that it actually led. So they put out the safety campaign of this ad, and they decided to go this route with it, and it was just a song about dumb ways to die. And then at the one of the ways mentioned, kind of emphasized at the end, was the train station, like that, to die on train tracks or whatever. And then it actually led to like a 20% reduction in deaths in Australia on train tracks, like after it was released. I think like it's just it's just,
I wonder how that has continued on, whether you know that reduction has held. I don't know what year that was released.
When it went off the charts, like people went back to jumping in front of trains.
Yeah. But I imagine, like, if it was something popular for children, it would stick in your mind. I mean, I remember the safety road cross safe cross code. The thing with the hedgehog and what was it, song that used to be on TV.
I don't know that one.
Well, it wasn't that good, so.
Which even the RSA campaigns have been really effective in terms of, you know, creating that kind of change. There are many RSA campaigns. One is where, like, they have short snippets of slow motion of kids playing, and then a guy is off the phone and he looks at the screen, and then bam. Like,
yeah, they're very different to this campaign. Like, the overall like effect, I think, is the same, but the Irish RSA ads were very I don't know what the correct word is. They were quite intense. Like, they were, when you watched them, you're like, oh wow.
Yeah, I think they're still running as well. Like, it's not like so making new ones or whatever. Like, but they're all like we're all talking about it now, right? So like they're very shocking and effective in a different way, kind of.
At least RSA is very uniform in terms of its brand message, and that's something which I want to come back to Debbie as well. So we just want to discuss, and now, like, we all know that how important it is for companies to really have a uniform brand message all through their company and whatever they are putting up on social media or the kind of events they are doing online and offline. So what's your idea upon that? how important it is for companies to have a uniform, brand message, and then how important it is for them to relay this to their consumers or the users who are there.
In what way exactly, though? Do you mean, like, are you talking about dumb ways to die as well?
Now, I'll just come up to companies. Just supposedly, it's Connect More, and Connect More believes in creating educational, informative content for our users, not just their products and services. It's about creating better and good content so that people just come in and learn something new. That's the aim of the podcast as well. So we have a brand message which we want to relay. So how do you think how important it is for companies to maintain that kind of uniformity in brand message or brand identity as it?
Super important, obviously. So I think always going back to the story and the reason why, and just constantly peeling the onion and asking, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Sometimes trying to be too strict with your brand identity might it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah. So you don't want to be too consistent and doing the same thing over and over again because we said so.
That's true, actually. Yeah. So you don't want to be like, you want to have a consistent message, or like, this is, we're this type of company or whatever, but you don't want to be having such a rigid thing that if you stray from it, like for one event or something, that then people are like, oh, I didn't think they were like that, or exactly. Yeah. So you're saying kind of overall message or kind of identity, but you need room to breathe.
I think as well it's important to not be like boring as a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like if you're essentially always pushing the exact same message, like people are going to get bored of it, and it won't be like the reason like the RSA things are good, or the dumb way to die is good, is because it's like, an exception to like those genres are usually very not memorable piece of marketing. Like it's just some guy reading out like rules wearing like a luminous jacket is like a road safety ad typically, or like even a train safety ad. They would just show a picture of the tracks or whatever. Like it's like they wouldn't. It's because those bits of marketing are not uniform. What you'd expect is what makes them so effective. So I think there's like a good amount of like mix to be had, and it's a bit of, I suppose it's a bit of an art as well. Like
exactly. Like to be honest though, times are always changing. Even if we were to just think about everyone's brand strategy when COVID came along and how we're embracing the workplace and we're working remotely, COVID to a point where then it just became old news. So I think just not being strict with yourself and figuring out what works for who. So even if we do just bring in dumb ways to die, like they didn't just, like, I think it's very easy nowadays to just do one campaign. They could have just left the video as it was and that's it, and backed off, and they would have still gone viral. But they really implemented everything. They created a mural at a train station that people were taking photos in front of. So that campaign got user-generated content that went in full circle from digital to physical to digital again, in different formats as well. That's again what was being said, like with just being funny, being relevant as well. Like it's a fight to who's more relevant nowadays too. So
who's the most edgy? Who's the most
exactly. And also, like, even when you think about it, before photos or like sales ads were like highly professional, like straight out of a magazine. But if we were to look at that card game, we're not really strangers. I remember a job ad coming up for them for street photographers in New York with an iPhone. Like they wanted that pixelated, natural look that everyone has at like the palm of their hands. So I think it's just about like outlining a couple of ballpark adjectives or criteria or characteristics that you want your brand to have, but then having fun with it and just like seeing what works. Something will land. It's a numbers game at the end of the day,
Yeah, exactly. Like the ultimate like editor is the people.
People connect with people. That's the thing. So like you might just promote your product and get 20 likes or leads, then you post a company photo from an event of all you guys having pints, and that's the thing that brought more eyes on your company.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned as well, like, user generated content, and like that's such a massive thing today, and it's such a, you know, it's such a high leverage sort of marketing tactic to aim towards that. And if you're not interesting, you're not going to get any user generated content.
No, that's all. Even just introducing the team behind the company.
Yeah. Exactly.
So like right now we see a lot of people not even embracing, but there will come to a point where everyone has to really get out of their comfort zone and get used to talking on camera and like just being the face of whatever company. And I think that's what Connect Mór does really well, especially with you, James. Like, you don't shy away from talking about your product, like you believe in it.
Yeah.
And that's basically it, you know, and that's it. I connected to you through your profile, not through Connect Mór. You are my first lead, technically. So that's the thing, eh?
Yeah. It's it's great. We can end it there as well on a little advertisement. It's great.
Yeah, Connect Mór is great.
Yeah. So
well, just one more question for you, I guess. So like, you do a lot. So you said you do, you know, content marketing, social media, all of that. Which like part of it? Like, I guess it's quite hard to do all of those if you had a client. Like, what's your preferred side? Do you prefer the social media or maybe the content, or you say like the artistic kind of content creation?
It's a tough one. I think I would say content first, social media second, because I feel like social media now is just there. Like, you're not gonna do anything without it.
Yeah.
So I would say content, because that's just that goes a little bit further in including podcasts, including voice, online events now as well. Social media is included. I'd love to work in a bit more of a traditional sense as well, and just like merging the physical with digital. So like, obviously right now all the talk is NFTs and crypto and that sort of stuff, and it's so cool to see how people are going to, like, rather than just sell a little digital like photo file, like how's it going to be included in a brand strategy or sort of stuff. Like, what are you going to send them physically? What are you going to provide to them? Like, where's that human interaction going to be? That sort of thing. So yeah, I'd say content first.
Yeah. No, I kind of got that from what you were saying, like earlier when you were talking about content, that you were probably more that side of the fence or whatever.
You have to be. You have to be, because if you're just going to be doing social media marketing with just blindly jumping into it and uploading whatever comes your way or whatever like pops in your head, yes, you're going to land a few things, but like there will come a point where you are faced with like, listen, I need a content strategy.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I guess like just kind of pointing that, like, you know, there's kind of two sides to them. There's like the content side and the creative side, and then there's the, you know, the kind of analytical side where, you know, you do your research and stuff like that. Like the analytical side, that a lot of that can be automated. You know, you can do a lot of things there to automate that side. The content creation and the artistic, that's very difficult to automate that. So like, you know, if you're good at that, it's I don't know. I think it's a more rewarding side anyways. It depends on your kind of mindset.
It depends. You don't say that to an analyst though. But numbers will help you in determining, especially like when it came to my master's degree, for example, and studying it, all the professors were telling us about like, you need to show how important marketing is to the return, to the ROI, you know, like you have to speak to certain people up top in numbers and stuff that they know. You can tell them, listen, this video has X amount of views and X amount of love hearts. What do people like? Your boss, your manager isn't going to care. They're going to care if they got a good amount.
How many of those converted to sales or whatever? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's that balance of, if you, as a freelancer or as an agency, if you were to consistently hit the nail on the head when it comes to good content, like, look, this is our brand, like, people are starting to land on our Instagram and be like, ooh, I know these guys. So the next time they get an ad, they know these guys. And it will just help with brand recognition and awareness. I think that's the most important thing as well. It's hard to calculate, but just finding that little balance, that happy medium.
Yeah, makes sense. You can't have one without the other. Yeah, cool.
I think that was, in short, a very insightful conversation of everything which we talked about. I guess whatever we planned about this episode, we went way and above head everything, and whatever you said had really been, I don't know, informative for me, because I'm in the marketing field. I know that talking to a person who's working in that field, it's kind of thing which I can relate to. There was not a point which I thought that, oh, this is not something I can relate to. She's just kind of going off track. This is something which I believe in, and that's all the idea, I think, is of sharing those opinions and those insights about the industry. And just, it's about bringing change, and I guess we are the only people who are going to bring the change.
Yeah.
In whatever terms we are talking.
I don't really get that, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it come from me and James as engineers. It's a bit different. It's incredibly interesting. I know we went over time here, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I guess just one last thing, if you wanna, anybody who's listening looking for a marketer, do you want to give your details?
They can just write out Debbie Shaw, SHAW, and they'll find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. Right now, things are still in the works, so if they were to follow me, they would soon find out some really cool stuff.
Cool, yeah. We'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Yeah. We'll start using show notes.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much for your time, Debbie. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully, people find this informative, hopefully slightly entertaining as well. And we'll be back with another guest next time. And who knows what we'll be talking about.